Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. I'm going to talk today about Trump Derangement Syndrome because I think we need to see it in a different light. We need to change the narrative around this particular syndrome, and we should call it Trump's Derangement Syndrome. But before I start to explain to you what that means, and I've got a few examples of it here that I'd like to show you, please remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do whatever you need to do about all of that. And can you also please remember that this is the Tony Tonkin Show. So, let's just talk about Trump Derangement Syndrome. Now, this is a term that has, I guess, emerged in political discourse, often used to describe individuals who are perceived to have an irrational or extreme reaction to Trump. And I guess as a result of that, all of his policies as well. Now, the term is controversial, and I've experienced it. I experienced people talking to me about it in my comment section. They accuse me of having TDS, and I accept that. But it is frequently employed in political debates, such as those that I'm having with people on my channel. So there's discussions that are those discussions are therefore, I guess, supposed to discredit or undermine the argument of opponents. So when people tell me that I've got TDS, they're trying to undermine my argument. So in fact, what they seem to be saying that that my arguments are valid. That's kind of the message I get. So TDS is a label that is primarily used by supporters of Trump, as I've experienced, to characterise the behaviour of his critics. It suggests that the opposition to Trump is not based on legitimate concerns or rational analysis, but instead rooted in an emotional and irrational hatred. Now, I wouldn't say my response to Trump is irrational, and I wouldn't say it is hatred. I'd say it's dislike, I'd say it's contempt, and so on. But I guess basically this concept implies that the critics are so consumed by the disdain for Trump, people like me that is, that they are unable to engage in objective or constructive discussions about his presidency and the impact that it has. So I guess I understand that. But one of the key aspects of TDS is the idea that critics of Trump are willing to go to great lengths to oppose him, even when it may seem to contradict their previous positions or principles. For example, now, some proponents of the term argue that individuals with TDS may oppose policies and actions taken by Trump that they would otherwise support if they were implemented by another political figure, Biden, for example, I guess. The problem that we have with that argument is that I would find it very difficult to find any policies of Trump's that I agree with. But there is one that I guess we can sort of understand, and that would be where Trump has suggested and imposed Doge in order to change or to confront the waste that is in the federal government. Now, we all agree that there is some waste, but the way by which he goes about it is not all that helpful. So this is an argument that those people who accuse others of TDS would have, is that there are some policies that we would even agree with. Well, this inconsistency is often pointed out as evidence, what I've just mentioned, for example, of the irrationality and emotional bias associated with TDS. So supporters of Trump have used the term to describe various reactions to his presidency, including media coverage, political activism, and public protests. They argue that the media in particular has demonstrated a biased and hostile attitude towards Trump, often portraying him in an unflattering light and focusing on his perceived shortcomings and controversies, of which I admit there are many. So no wonder there's a focus on all of that. This perspective, though, suggests that the media's treatment of Trump is a symptom of TDS, driven by a deep-seated animosity, rather than objective reporting. And I guess to some extent that may be true. But does it change the version of Trump that some might have? And does it mean that is being reported inaccurately as a result? Well, I guess that's another question we need to answer. However, the concept of TDS is not without its critics. Many opponents of Trump argue that the term is a dismissive and reductive way to invalidate legitimate concerns and criticisms about his presidency. They contend that labelling someone as having TDS is an attempt to shut down meaningful debate and avoid addressing the substance of their arguments. And I certainly experienced that from those people that say that I've got TDS in my comments section. Critics of the term argue that opposition to Trump can be based on a rational analysis of his policies, behaviour, and the broad implications of his leadership. And I certainly support that argument because, in a sense, that's what I'm trying to do. But I do have an opposition to who this man is, the way he thinks, the way he acts, and the way he behaves. Furthermore, some critics of TDS point out that the term itself can be seen as a form of gaslighting, a psychological manipulation tactic that seeks to make individuals doubt their own perceptions and beliefs. By labelling critics as irrational or deranged, supporters of Trump may be attempting to delegitimize their viewpoints and create a narrative that those who oppose him are not capable of rational thought. So therefore, we must be the crazy ones, I guess. The use of TDS is a term in political discourse as highlights, I guess, the deep polarisation and division that characterised the Trump presidency. It reflects the intense emotions and strong opinions that Trump elicited from both his supporters and opponents, and is eliciting to this day. In fact, in this term, he is more, I guess, we're more confronted by what he's doing because, as in the first term, he just had some guardrails on and now he has none. But let's beware. This polarisation and often made it challenging to engage in productive and respectful discussions about his administration and his impact on the country. So, Trump Derangement Syndrome is a term that has been used to describe what some perceive as an irrational extreme reaction to Donald Trump. While it is primarily employed by Trump's supporters to discredit his critics, it is a controversial and divisive concept. Critics of the term argue that it is a dismissive way to invalidate legitimate concerns and criticisms, and that opposition to Trump can be based on rational analysis. And that's where I'm at. I believe that Trump Derangement Syndrome should be relabeled. We should now refer to it as Trump's Derangement Syndrome. So this is a syndrome that Trump has. It's a dysfunction that he has because he is the one who is deranged, and that needs to be our focus. And in order to highlight this a little bit more, I'll put up on the screen for you CNN's response to some of the lies portrayed by Donald Trump, and how this is in terms of Trump Derangement Syndrome. CNN's effort, my effort, to be able to highlight the rational view of Donald Trump, not to dismiss him outright, but certainly to say, well, you're a liar, mate, and we're identifying what those lies are. So the first one they've got here is the tale of the 50 million. No, make it 100 million. Whatever. This is the condoms for Hamas. And I've talked about this before. In fact, it's a total lie. But somehow he got this in his head that there were all these condoms sent to Gaza. He had the wrong place. It was Mozambique. Won't go into all that again. The fact is that it's a lie, blaming Ukraine for starting the war. Now, we know that that's not true. That's a blatant lie. So those of you who say that I've got derangement syndrome, let me know why you think that that is the truth. The non-uniqueness of birthright citizenship, it's in the Constitution. So someone helped to explain to me why that is not a lie, that if you're born in the United States, you get to be a citizen of the United States. More up is down, reversing of the reality of January the 6th. So denying that January the 6th was an event which was not about raiding the Capitol, was not about changing the government by infiltrating the government and getting rid of Mike Pence and doing those terrible things that they were going to do, to deny that. A gusher of deceit about California water policy, so that stuff about turning it on the north and having it flow down to the... Because Trump thinks that if the map's sitting upright, then everything must go from the top to the bottom. The man's an idiot. The election lie he refused to let die. The fable about Olympic boxers. Again, Trump, once prominent promoter of lies about President Barack Obama's birthplace, continued to demonstrate no hesitation lying about not only policy issues but also individual people. This time he promoted his push to try to get transgender athletes banned from the Olympics, so on and so on. And the Olympic Committee repeatedly noted during the Olympics when Trump and others made this such claim, neither champion had transitioned. So again, another lie. The president's fictional northern border, the thing about Canada and their border is arbitrarily put there apparently. Blasting Biden for a program launched under Trump after the deadly January collision between a military helicopter and passenger jet. Trump blamed Biden administration diversity initiatives and so on. Relentless deception about who pays tariffs. We know about that. So there is no doubt that if one looks at all of those issues, one could argue that I have Trump Derangement Syndrome. But we need to change the narrative. So I'm now saying that it's Trump's derangement syndrome. Now, there's just some of the lies that he's said in recent times, just in the last 4 weeks. There will be thousands of lies, he will say, because the man hasn't got... Now, maybe this is Trump derangement syndrome, but it is about Trump's derangement, and we must be clear about that. Trump's derangement means that Trump has a skewed view of the world, and that view of the world is dangerous simply because he doesn't listen to other people. He believes his ideas are right, no matter how crazy they might be. Turning Gaza into a resort, for example, is just stupid and bizarre. Taking over Greenland is the same, and Canada is another, and the Panama Canal is another. So there's all these issues which indicate that the man is nuts. And it's Trump's derangement syndrome that's the issue, not the fact that others are deranged about him. It's him about him. It's Trump's derangement syndrome. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for the notifications, do what you need to do. But the question I think that I would like to see some of you asking is, do you have Trump derangement syndrome, or do you accept that Trump's derangement is his derangement? No one else's, just Trump's. The ownership is on Trump. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.